The morning sun of Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the peaceful mining settlement as Commander Veltar walked through the quiet streets. The Zephyrian colony had been here for 23 years now, turning raw minerals into beautiful art pieces that sold across the galaxy. His people were known for their gentle nature and amazing sculptures, not for fighting wars. Veltar stopped at the central plaza where younglings played near the fountain. Their parents watched with the calm patience that marked his species. The Zephyrians had evolved beyond violence long ago. They solved problems with words and wisdom, not weapons and war. "Commander," called out his assistant Kiranel as she hurried toward him. Her usually bright blue skin had turned a worried shade of gray. "We have received troubling news from the outer sensors." Veltar felt his heart sink. For the past few days, strange ships had been spotted at the edge of their solar system. Ships that did not respond to friendly greetings or trade requests. Ships that moved with purpose toward their peaceful world. "What did the sensors show?" he asked, though he feared the answer. "A large fleet, sir. More than 200 vessels. They match the descriptions in the galactic database." Kiranel's voice dropped to a whisper. "They are Krek ships." The name sent a chill through every Zephyrian within hearing distance. The Krek's armada was known throughout the galaxy as ruthless conquerors. They swept through systems, taking whatever they wanted and enslaving anyone who could not fight back. They especially targeted peaceful species like the Zephyrians. Veltar closed his eyes and tried to think. His people had no weapons beyond mining tools. Their ships were built for carrying cargo, not for battle. The colony's defenses consisted of a few old warning beacons and some basic shields around the main settlement. "How long do we have?" he asked. "The computer estimates 72 standard hours before they reach orbit." 72 hours. 3 days to save 30,000 innocent lives. Veltar rushed to the communication center, his mind racing through their limited options. He could try to evacuate some of the population, but their cargo ships could only carry a few hundred people at a time. Most would be left behind. He could try to hide people in the deep mines, but the Krek scanners would find them eventually. The communications center buzzed with activity as his staff worked frantically to contact anyone who might help. The results were not encouraging. The Altarian Republic says they sympathize but cannot risk war with the Kreks, reported one technician. The Centauri Federation offers to accept refugees after the crisis is over, said another. The Vegan Trade Union suggests we negotiate with the Kreks for better surrender terms. Veltar felt anger rise in his chest. Something rare for his peaceful people. How could civilized species simply watch while innocent lives were destroyed? Where was the unity and cooperation that the galactic community claimed to value? "Sir," called the chief communications officer, "we have established contact with the Galactic Council emergency session." The main screen flickered to life, showing a dozen representatives from various species. Councillor Thranks of the Andromedan Empire spoke first. "Commander Veltar, we have reviewed your situation. While we deeply regret the threat to your colony, we must consider the broader implications of military action against the Kreks." Broader implications? Veltar could not hide his shock. "We are talking about the lives of 30,000 people." "Yes, but military intervention could destabilize the entire sector," replied Councillor Vix from the Rigel Consortium. "The Kreks might retaliate against other worlds. We could be looking at a full-scale war. So our lives mean nothing?" Veltar asked. The council members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Finally, Councillor Thrank spoke again. "We will file a formal protest with the Kreks leadership. Perhaps they will show mercy." "Mercy?" Veltar laughed bitterly. "The Kreks do not know that word. They will enslave my people or kill them. There will be no mercy. We are sorry, Commander, but the Council cannot authorize military action at this time." The connection ended, leaving Veltar staring at a dark screen. Around him, his staff stood in stunned silence. The great galactic civilization, with all its talk of peace and cooperation, was abandoning them to their fate. "What do we do now, sir?" asked Kiranel. Veltar looked around the room at his people. These were not soldiers or warriors. They were artists, miners, teachers, and parents. They had never hurt anyone in their lives. They deserved better than to die alone and forgotten. "We send out a general distress call," he decided. "All frequencies, all languages. Maybe someone out there still believes in doing the right thing." The technicians worked quickly to prepare the broadcast. Veltar sat down at the main console and began recording. What might be his final message to the galaxy? "This is Commander." Veltar of the Zephyrian mining colony on Kepler 442b, we are sending this message to any civilized species who might receive it. Our world is under immediate threat from the Krex Armada. We have no weapons, no defenses, and no way to protect ourselves. He paused, thinking of the children playing in the plaza just hours ago. We are 30,000 souls who have never harmed another living being. We have spent our lives creating beauty and sharing it with the galaxy. We have welcomed traders from 100 worlds and treated them all as friends. Now we face extinction, and the galactic community has turned away from us. His voice grew stronger as he continued. If there is anyone out there who still believes that the strong should protect the weak, if there is any species that values life over politics, please help us. We do not ask you to die for us. We ask only that you give us a chance to live. The message went out across space, racing toward distant stars at the speed of light. It would take hours or days to reach most civilized worlds, but Veltar had to try. Over the next 24 hours, responses began to arrive. Most were expressions of sympathy with regretful explanations of why help was impossible. A few offered to take refugees after the Krex attack, as if 30,000 people could somehow survive what was coming. The Andromedans sent a beautiful poem honoring the Zephyrian spirit. The Rigel Consortium offered to buy any art pieces the colonists wanted to preserve. The Vegan Trade Union suggested that Zephyrian culture would live on in museums across the galaxy. They are already writing our obituary, Kiranel said sadly. As the second day passed, hope began to fade. The Krex fleet was now clearly visible on long-range sensors, a dark cloud of death approaching their peaceful world. Some families had begun gathering their most precious belongings, though they knew it was probably pointless. Then, late on the second night, something unexpected happened. A response came from a world most people had barely heard of. A small blue planet on the edge of civilized space. Zephyrian colony. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We have received your distress call. Help is coming. Hold on. Veltar stared at the message in confusion. Terrans, humans? He vaguely remembered hearing about them. A young species recently discovered, considered primitive by most galactic standards. What could they possibly do against the mighty Krex Armada? But as he looked around at his frightened people, Veltar realized that even false hope was better than no hope at all. At least someone in the galaxy still cared enough to try. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, in a facility that did not appear on any public map, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the war room of Terran Defense Force Command. The room hummed with activity as dozens of officers worked at holographic displays, coordinating humanity's military assets across known space. Chen was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. She had fought in the Martian independence conflict, led the defense of Europa Station, and commanded the first human fleet to venture beyond the solar system. At 62, she was one of Earth's most experienced military leaders. Play it again, she ordered quietly. The Zephyrian distress call filled the room once more. Commander Veltar's desperate voice spoke of 30,000 innocent lives hanging in the balance, while the galactic community turned away. Around the table, hardened military officers shifted uncomfortably. These were people who had spent their careers preparing for threats to Earth, not rescuing alien strangers. The Kepler system is outside our territory, said Captain Rodriguez, Chen's chief of staff. His scarred face showed the strain of the past few hours. Technically, we have no jurisdiction there. Since when do we need permission to do the right thing? Replied General Hayes, head of special operations. But even he sounded uncertain. Chen studied the tactical display floating above the table. The Krex fleet was massive by galactic standards. 200 warships armed with plasma cannons and particle beams. Intelligence reports described them as experienced fighters who had conquered dozens of worlds. What do we know about the Krex? Chen asked. Lieutenant Commander Park, their intelligence chief, activated a new display. They are a militaristic species that has been expanding for about 300 years. They specialize in enslaving peaceful civilizations and using forced labor for their industrial complexes. Their technology is about 50 years ahead of most galactic species. And compared to us? Park hesitated. That is difficult to assess, Admiral. We have never faced them in direct combat. Chen nodded slowly. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for only 50 years, and most species still saw them as primitive newcomers. Earth's first contact with alien life had been peaceful. But humans had learned to be very careful about revealing their true capabilities. The other species in the galaxy had evolved past warfare generations ago. They settled disputes with diplomacy, trade agreements, and council debates. Violence was something they read about in history books, not something they lived with every day. Humans were different. Earth had produced 10,000 years of almost constant warfare. Every generation had learned new ways to kill and survive. Even in the space age, humanity continued to fight over resources, territory, ideology, and sometimes just because fighting was what humans did. "Admiral," said Colonel Martinez, "the Zephyrians seem like good people, but is this really our fight? We barely have enough ships to defend our own territory." Chen looked around the room at her officers. These were people she trusted with her life and the safety of Earth. But sometimes trust meant making decisions that others could not understand. "How long would it take to reach the Kepler system?" she asked. "With our fastest ships, about 40 hours, replied Captain Rodriguez. "And our response options? We could send a diplomatic mission to try negotiating with the Creks," suggested General Hayes. Without much enthusiasm, "We could evacuate some of the Zephyrians," offered Colonel Martinez. Chen shook her head. "The Creks do not negotiate with species they consider weak, and we cannot evacuate 30,000 people in time." She paused, studying the faces around the table. "There is another option." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what she was thinking, but no one wanted to say it out loud. "The 7th Fleet," whispered General Hayes finally. Chen nodded. "Prep the 7th Expeditionary Fleet for immediate deployment." The effect was immediate. Officers straightened in their chairs, technicians stopped typing, and conversations died throughout the room. The 7th Fleet was humanity's most classified military secret, known only to the highest levels of government and military command. "Admiral," Captain Rodriguez said carefully, "are you certain? The 7th has never been deployed. The other galactic species do not even know it exists." "Maybe it is time they learned," Chen replied. The 7th Fleet had been built in complete secrecy over the past 20 years. While humanity presented a peaceful face to the galaxy, Earth's military leaders had been quietly preparing for the day when diplomacy would not be enough. The ships of the 7th Fleet incorporated every lesson learned from human military history, enhanced with alien technology and human innovation. These were not exploration vessels or merchant ships. They were weapons of war, built by a species that understood war better than any other in the galaxy. "General Hayes, I want the 7th Fleet ready to jump in 6 hours," Chen ordered. "Full combat loadout, all support vessels, and our best crews." "Yes, ma'am." "And our rules of engagement?" Chen thought about Commander Veltar's desperate message. About 30,000 innocent people who had never hurt anyone. She thought about the Galactic Council's refusal to help, and the cold calculations that valued political stability over living beings. "Protect the Zephyrians," she said simply, "whatever it takes." As her officers rushed to carry out orders, Chen remained in the war room staring at the tactical display. In a few hours, 50 human warships would begin the journey to Kepler 442b. Ships that had been designed and built in secret, crewed by volunteers who understood they might not return home. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Commander Park, "there is something else you should know. Our intelligence suggests that several other species are monitoring the situation. If we intervene, word will spread quickly throughout the galaxy." "Good," Chen replied. "It is time the galaxy learned that humanity does not abandon innocent people to die, even if it means revealing our true military capabilities." Chen turned to face her intelligence chief. "Park, for 50 years we have been the new kids in the galactic neighborhood. We have smiled and nodded while older species treated us like children. We have let them think we are primitive. Because it was convenient." She gestured toward the display showing the Creks fleet approaching the helpless Zephyrian colony. "But look what their advanced civilization has produced. They watch genocide unfold and debate political implications. They write poetry for the dead instead of preventing death. Maybe it is time for the children to teach the adults what responsibility really means." 6 hours later, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the TDF Consequences, flagship of the 7th Expeditionary Fleet. Around her, 50 of humanity's most advanced warships prepared to jump to hyperspace. "All ships report ready, Admiral," announced Captain Rodriguez. Chen looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. Somewhere out there, A peaceful people faced extinction while their neighbors did nothing. But not all neighbors were the same. "All ships," she broadcast on the fleet frequency. "This is Admiral Chen. We are about to make history. In a few hours we will arrive at a world where 30,000 innocent people are about to die. The galaxy has decided their lives are not worth the risk of action." She paused, thinking of every war Earth had fought. Every time humans had chosen to fight for what was right instead of what was easy. "We disagree. Today we remind the galaxy that strength exists not to dominate the weak, but to protect them from those who would. All ships, jump in 3, 2, 1. Execute." The stars stretched into lines of light as 50 human warships vanished into hyperspace, racing toward a confrontation that would change the galaxy forever. Warlord Thanex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, and felt the familiar satisfaction of an easy conquest approaching. Through the massive viewport, the peaceful blue-green world of Kepler 442b grew larger as his fleet approached. 200 Krex warships surrounded him in perfect battle formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that had shattered dozens of worlds. The Krex were a proud warrior race, though their idea of warfare had become quite simple over the centuries. They found weak species, overwhelmed them with superior numbers and technology, then enslaved the survivors. It was efficient and profitable, which were the only things that mattered to Krex culture. "Status report," Thanex growled to his bridge crew. "All ships in position." "Warlord," replied his tactical officer. "The target world shows minimal defensive capability. A few cargo ships, some mining platforms, and basic planetary shields around their main settlement. Any response to our arrival?" "Only the usual pleading, sir. They claim to be a peaceful people with no military capability." Thanex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "They always say that. It never stops them from fighting when we begin the harvest. But this conquest felt different somehow. The Zephyrians truly seemed to have no weapons beyond mining equipment. Their desperate messages had been broadcast across the galaxy for days, begging for help that never came. Even the mighty Galactic Council had abandoned them to their fate. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." "Put it through." The image of Commander Veltar appeared on the main screen. The Zephyrian leader looked tired and frightened, but he still stood straight and spoke with dignity. "Warlord Thanex, I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian mining colony. We have no quarrel with your people. We ask only that you allow us to live in peace." "Peace?" Thanex sneered. "There is no peace for the weak. You have resources we need and bodies that can work our minds. Surrender now and some of you may survive as slaves. We cannot accept that fate for our people. Then you will all die. We attack in 1 hour." Thanex cut the transmission and turned back to his tactical display. This would be over quickly. His plasma cannons would make short work of the planet's shields, and his boarding parties would secure the valuable workers. "Another successful harvest for the Krex Armada, sir." The sensor officer's voice cracked with shock. "New contacts dropping out of hyperspace." Thanex spun around to face the sensor display. Impossible. His intelligence network had confirmed that no galactic species would risk war with the Krex over a few primitive colonists. "How many ships?" he demanded. 50 contacts, sir. They are positioning themselves between us and the planet. 50? Thanex felt a flicker of unease. "What species?" "Unknown, sir. The ships do not match any design in our database." The main screen shifted to show the new arrivals. Thanex stared in confusion at ships unlike anything he had ever seen. They were sleek and predatory, with hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange energy signatures pulsed along their surfaces and weapon ports that looked far too large for ships of their size. "Scan them," he ordered. "I want to know what we are dealing with." "Sir, the scans are unusual. These ships appear to be heavily armed, but the technology is not familiar. Power readings are extremely high. 50 ships against 200, Thanex muttered. Whatever species this is, they are either very brave or very stupid. Incoming transmission, sir. Put it through." A new face appeared on the screen. A female of a species Thanex did not recognize. She had pale skin, gray hair, and cold blue eyes that reminded him uncomfortably of a hunting predator. "Warlord Thanex, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately." "Terran?" Thanex searched his memory. "Human? You are the primitives from that little blue world?" The newcomers who barely discovered faster-than-light travel, we are the people who answered a distress call that your so-called advanced civilization chose to ignore. Thanex laughed loudly, and his bridge crew joined in. Humans, the galactic community's newest members, considered primitive by every civilized species. They had been in space for less than a century and still fought wars among themselves like savages. "Little human," he said with amusement, "you have made a terrible mistake. We are the Krex Armada. We have conquered civilizations that were ancient when your species was still living in caves. Turn around and go home before you get hurt." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawing from this system. This is your only warning. Or what? You will attack us with your 50 little ships?" Thanex gestured to his tactical display. "I have 200 warships armed with plasma cannons and particle beams. My fleet has destroyed entire worlds. What could your primitive technology possibly do to us?" 20 seconds. Something in the human's voice made Thanex pause. There was no fear, no uncertainty. Just cold certainty, as if she already knew how this confrontation would end. "Sir," whispered his tactical officer, "our sensors are detecting some unusual readings from the human ships. The power signatures are much higher than they should be for vessels of that size." "Impossible," Thanex snarled. "They are primitives." 10 seconds. Thanex felt anger rise in his chest. How dare this primitive species threaten him? The Krex Armada had never retreated from inferior forces. His warriors would laugh at him for the rest of his life if he backed down from 50 human ships. "Time's up," Admiral Chen said quietly. The transmission ended, leaving Thanex staring at a dark screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. The moment stretched longer than it should have. "Sir?" prompted his tactical officer. "All ships prepare for battle," Thanex commanded. "Show these humans what happens when primitives interfere with their betters." But as the human fleet began to spread into attack formation, Thanex noticed something that made his blood run cold. The movement was perfect, mathematical. Each ship knew exactly where it needed to be, and they all moved together like parts of a single organism. The Krex fought with courage and superior numbers. They relied on overwhelming firepower and the fear their reputation created. But the humans moved like soldiers, like people who had spent their entire existence learning how to fight and win. "Sir?" the sensor officer called out, his voice rising with panic. "The human ships are powering up weapons systems we do not recognize. The energy readings are impossible." For the first time in 3 centuries of conquest, Warlord Thanex felt something he had almost forgotten. Fear. "All ships," he broadcast to his fleet. "Prepare for immediate combat. Target the human vessels and fire on my command." On his tactical display, 50 human ships faced 200 Krex warships. By all logical calculation, this should be a massacre. But as Thanex watched the perfect precision of the human formation, he began to suspect that someone was indeed about to be massacred. He just was not sure it would be the humans. The first shots came from the Krex fleet exactly as Admiral Chen had expected. Warlord Thanex was too proud to retreat and too stupid to recognize what he was truly facing. The plasma cannons that had shattered a dozen civilizations lanced through space toward the human vessels with deadly precision. Chen watched calmly from the bridge of the consequences as the enemy fire struck their adaptive shielding and simply disappeared. The energy was absorbed, converted, and stored for later use. Technology that humanity had developed by studying every shield system in the galaxy and then improving on all of them. "All ships," she broadcast on the fleet frequency. "Weapons free. Show them what Earth's children can do." What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was a demonstration of what happened when evolution favored the survivors of 10,000 years of warfare. The human fleet moved like a pack of wolves, each ship perfectly coordinated with the others through quantum-encrypted communications that updated thousands of times per second. While the Krex fought as individual ships trying to coordinate, the humans fought as a single organism with 50 deadly parts. The TDF Retribution fired first. Its main weapon was a kinetic accelerator that launched solid projectiles at 30% of light speed. The tungsten rod punched through a Krex destroyer's shields as if they were paper, continued through the hull, and exited the other side in a spray of superheated metal. The destroyer exploded in a brilliant fireball that lit up the darkness of space. But it was not just the weapons that made the difference. It was the tactics. Where other galactic species fought with honor, following established rules of engagement that had been agreed upon centuries ago, the humans fought to win. They targeted command ships first, cutting the head off the enemy formation. They used debris as improvised weapons, launching chunks of destroyed Krex vessels at other targets. They employed psychological warfare, leaving some enemy ships damaged but alive just long enough for their crews to watch their fleet die around them. Captain Rodriguez, standing beside Admiral Chen on the bridge, shook his head in amazement. The Krex are fighting like it's still the old days. Standing formations, predictable patterns, textbook maneuvers. They have not had to adapt, Chen replied, watching as the TDF Vengeance used its quantum torpedoes to phase through a Krex battleship's shields and detonate inside the hull. For 300 years, they have conquered only peaceful species. They have forgotten what real war looks like. The human ships darted through the Krex formation like sharks through a school of fish. Their stealth systems, developed from studying humanity's long history of submarine warfare, made them nearly impossible to target accurately. Their weapons, based on principles learned from every conflict Earth had ever fought, found weaknesses the Krex did not know they had. The TDF Fury demonstrated humanity's mastery of electronic warfare by taking control of a Krex cruiser's weapon systems and forcing it to fire on its own allies. The TDF Thunder used its Hellfire missiles, weapons that could track their targets across light years if necessary, to destroy 6 enemy ships simultaneously. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the human assault was its efficiency. There was no wasted motion, no unnecessary destruction. Each shot was calculated for maximum effect. Each maneuver served multiple purposes. This was warfare refined by thousands of generations of soldiers who had learned that the difference between victory and defeat was often measured in seconds. On the bridge of the Bone Crusher, Warlord Thanekiax watched his mighty fleet being systematically dismantled by 50 primitive ships. His tactical display showed red icons winking out one by one as human weapons found their marks. How is this possible? He roared at his bridge crew. They are newcomers. Primitives. Sir, his tactical officer replied, voice shaking with fear. Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses. But their weapons are cutting through our shields like they are not there. What about their ship designs? Can we adapt our tactics? Sir, they are not using any recognized tactical patterns. It is as if they are making up new rules as they go. Thanex felt cold realization wash over him. The humans were not just technologically superior. They were fundamentally different. While his people had spent centuries fighting the same kinds of battles against the same kinds of enemies, the humans had apparently spent their entire history learning new ways to kill each other. Sir, called his communications officer, we are receiving a transmission from the human flagship. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen again. Behind her, Thanex could see human officers working with calm efficiency, as if the destruction of a galactic superpower was just another day at the office. Warlord Thanex, she said quietly, you have lost 160 ships in the past 18 minutes. Your remaining forces are scattered and demoralized. I am prepared to accept your surrender. Surrender? Thanex snarled. The Krex do not surrender to primitives. Then you will die like the others. Something in her voice, a cold certainty that reminded him of winter on his homeworld, made Thanex look at his tactical display again. 160 ships destroyed, 40 vessels remaining, most of them damaged. His proud armada reduced to scattered survivors in less than 20 minutes. What are you? He whispered. Admiral Chen's expression did not change. We are what happens when evolution favors the survivors. We are what you get when a species learns that the strong exist to protect the weak, not to prey upon them. She gestured, and the tactical display shifted to show the human fleet's formation. They had surrounded the remaining Krex ships without him even noticing. You have two choices, Warlord. Surrender your remaining forces and return to your territory, or continue fighting and join your dead warriors. Thanex looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were hardened warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, but now they stared at their instruments with the hollow eyes of the defeated. They had learned something today that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. They were not the apex predators they had believed themselves to be. If I surrender, he said slowly, what terms do you offer? No terms. You will withdraw from this system immediately and never return. You will broadcast to your entire empire that the Zephyrian colony is under human protection. You will release all slaves taken in your last 10 raids and return them to their homeworlds. That is impossible. My people will never accept such humiliation. Admiral Chen's smile was colder than space itself. Then I suggest you find a way to make them accept it. Because if any Krek ship is detected in Zephyrian space again, we will not be so generous next time. Thangix closed his eyes and tried to find some way to salvage his pride from this disaster. But when he opened them again and saw the human ships surrounding his battered fleet like patient predators, he knew there was only one choice that led to survival. The Krek's armada accepts your terms, he said, each word tasting like poison. Wise decision. You have 1 hour to collect your survivors and begin your withdrawal. After that, any Krek ship remaining in this system will be destroyed. The transmission ended, leaving Thanix alone with the wreckage of his reputation and the bitter knowledge that the galaxy had just changed forever. The primitives had become the apex predators and nothing would ever be the same again. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself, carried by quantum communicators and hyperspace relays to every civilized world within 1,000 light-years. The impossible had happened. The mighty Krek's armada, terror of the galaxy for 3 centuries, had been utterly destroyed by 50 ships from a species most people considered primitive. On the Galactic Council homeworld of New Geneva, emergency sessions ran around the clock. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in heated debate, trying to understand how their carefully balanced political order had been shattered in a single afternoon. The humans destroyed 160 Krek's warships without losing a single vessel, reported Intelligence Director Vexani to the assembled delegates. Our analysis suggests their technology is at least a century ahead of anything in our databases. Impossible, declared Councillor Thranks of the Andromedan Empire. We have been monitoring human development for 50 years. Their ships are crude, their weapons basic. Apparently not, replied Councillor Zara from the Centauri Federation. Our sources confirm that Warlord Thanix has withdrawn his entire fleet and is broadcasting warnings for Krek's forces to avoid human territory. The implications were staggering. For generations, the galactic community had operated under the assumption that they were the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Wars were fought with diplomacy and economic pressure. Military conflict was rare, limited, and conducted according to ancient rules of engagement. Humanity had just proven that all of their assumptions were wrong. Meanwhile, on Kepler 442b, Commander Veltar stood in the same plaza where his people had played just days before. But now the square was filled with human soldiers in powered armor, distributing medical supplies and helping to repair damage from the brief conflict. The humans were nothing like what he had expected. The same warriors who had just annihilated the most feared military force in the galaxy were now gently helping Zephyrian children who had been injured during the evacuation. They shared their rations with frightened families and worked alongside colonists to restore damaged systems. Commander Veltar, a human, approached him, removing her helmet to reveal a scarred face and kind eyes. I am Major Sarah Kim, commanding the relief force. Admiral Chen asked me to check on your people's needs. Your people have already done so much, Veltar replied, still struggling to believe that salvation had come from such an unlikely source. We cannot repay this debt. There is no debt, Major Kim said firmly. We did what anyone should do when innocent people are threatened. But your government, your people, surely there will be consequences for challenging the Kreks. Major Kim's expression hardened slightly. Commander, let me tell you something about humans. We have spent our entire history fighting wars against stronger enemies, defending causes that others called hopeless, and protecting people who could not protect themselves. It is what we do. She gestured toward her soldiers, who were working alongside Zephyrian engineers to rebuild damaged infrastructure. Every one of these Marines volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not go home, not because they were ordered to, but because they heard your call for help and could not ignore it. That is who we are. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the fleet. Admiral Chen's voice crackled through Veltar's translator. Commander Veltar, we are receiving multiple distress calls from across the galaxy. Word of what happened here has spread, and other species are requesting assistance against their oppressors. Veltar felt his heart sink. Admiral, surely you cannot help everyone. Your fleet, no matter how powerful, is still only 50 ships. Chen's reply carried a note of grim satisfaction. Actually, Commander, the 7th Fleet was just our rapid response force. Earth has been building ships for 20 years that the galaxy never knew existed. We have the 3rd, 8th, and 12th Fleets ready to deploy within hours. The implications hit Veltar like a physical blow. Humanity had not just hidden advanced technology from the galaxy. They had hidden an entire military infrastructure, built in secret while playing the role of primitive newcomers. But why? He asked. Why reveal yourselves now? Because someone had to, Chen replied simply. For too long, the galaxy has operated on the principle that the strong take what they want, while the weak suffer in silence. The so-called advanced civilizations write poetry for the dead instead of preventing death. They debate politics while innocents die. Her voice grew harder. While we are not advanced enough to ignore genocide, we are still primitive enough to believe that strength should protect weakness, not exploit it. Over the following days, the scope of humanity's intervention became clear. The 3rd Fleet moved to liberate slave colonies in the Vega sector. The 8th Fleet confronted pirate raiders in the Outer Rim. The 12th Fleet positioned itself between 2 warring species in the Antares system, forcing them to negotiate instead of fight. Each deployment revealed new aspects of human military capability that shocked the galactic community. Stealth ships that could appear anywhere without warning, weapons that could disable entire fleets without destroying them, communication networks that could coordinate operations across thousands of light years in real time. But perhaps most disturbing to the established powers was humanity's tactical approach. They did not conquer territory or demand tribute. They simply appeared wherever innocents were threatened, eliminated the threat, and then offered to help rebuild. They acted more like police than conquerors, which made them almost impossible to counter politically. The Andromedan Empire tried to organize opposition to human expansion, but found few allies. Species that had been victims of stronger neighbors suddenly had a powerful protector. Peaceful civilizations that had lived in fear for generations could finally focus on growth and development instead of defense. Within months, the balance of power in the galaxy had fundamentally shifted. The Krex Empire fragmented as subject worlds rebelled, knowing that human fleets would protect them. Pirate organizations disbanded rather than face the mysterious human warships. Even legitimate governments began treating their neighbors with more respect, knowing that oppression might attract unwanted attention from Earth. Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the consequences, watching her fleet patrol the border of what had once been Krex territory. Captain Rodriguez joined her, carrying a stack of reports from across human-controlled space. "The latest intelligence summaries, Admiral," he said. 17 species have formally requested human protection. The Galactic Council has introduced 3 resolutions condemning our aggressive expansion, and 2 more requesting defensive pacts with Earth. Chen smiled grimly. Amazing how quickly attitudes change when the galaxy realizes we are not going away. Are you concerned about the political implications? Some of our allies worry we are making too many enemies. Rodriguez, we spent 50 years trying to fit into their political system. We smiled, we negotiated, we followed their rules. And when innocent people needed help, their advanced civilization abandoned them to die. She turned to face him. I would rather be feared by those who prey on the weak than loved by those who enable them. A new report came through the communication system. Another distress call. This one from a mining station under attack by raiders. Another chance for humanity to prove that in a galaxy full of advanced civilizations, sometimes the best solution was the simplest one. Good people with bigger guns standing up for those who could not stand up for themselves. All ships, Admiral Chen broadcast to her fleet. New mission parameters incoming. Time to remind the galaxy once again that Earth's children are still watching. As the human fleet changed course toward the distant emergency, the message was clear to anyone monitoring their communications. Humanity had not hidden their true nature to deceive the galaxy, but to protect it from a simple truth. When evolution spent 10,000 years favoring the survivors, the result was a species that was very, very good at survival. And sometimes, that was exactly what the galaxy needed.